Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the vertical pressing with minimal pain video series. Today, we're gonna be working on showing you how to do a bilateral vertical press. Bilateral, using both arms, vertical press, pressing all the way up overhead. Now, people will call this a shoulder press. Some people will call it a military press. Whether you're standing or seated, that's really irrelevant at this point. What we're primarily focused on over the next 3 videos is we're really gonna focus on dialing not only how to increase your mobility, right, but how to create some stability for this joint structure. Then from there, we're gonna work on what the form looks like to building strength. And then finally, we're gonna work on transitioning that strength into power. So over the course of this 3-part video series, we're gonna work very clearly on each one of those sections to make sure that you not only have some tools that you can use the next time you go to the gym, but you also have a deeper level of understanding and knowledge as to why you would do one over the other and why they all should be used together during your training program. So without further ado, let's jump into part 1. Let's talk a little bit about mobility and activation. All right, so when you first get into the gym and we're working on vertical pressing, i.e. shoulder presses up overhead, one of the most important things that we need to focus on first in this phase is we need to focus on stretching. Now, if you naturally have tight shoulders, tight pecs, it's gonna be really important that you take a moment and do some corrective exercises. There are a lot of people out there who are probably gonna tell you that doing static stretches before you exercise is a bad thing. However, if you are naturally tight and you have limited range of motion, doing a static stretch before you start exercise is actually gonna clear the way so that you're capable of getting into a full range of motion with minimal pain. So, here are 2 core exercises that I like using that are gonna help create that space in the shoulder. The first thing that we wanna focus on is the front portion of the shoulder. We often call this the doorway stretch. So as the movement gets yourself set up, we would bring the arm up to the bar. We wanna make sure that the elbow is at least shoulder height. And then we wanna stagger the feet and the hips so that we can step through with the inside leg. Now, what this is naturally gonna do is it's gonna start to create a little bit of tension, which you're gonna be able to feel through the pec and going into the delt. We don't want it to be super, super tight. But when we get ourselves set up, we wanna breathe and brace into the belly, create some tension down here. So you'll hear me inhale, pressurize, create tension, and then I wanna go ahead and start to push myself forward. And as I push forward, I wanna make sure I have an even amount of tension from the pec all the way to the delt. I don't want all the pressure right in the shoulder, creating tension up here. I wanna make sure that I can evenly displace that tension across the full band of muscle tissue. So as I'm pushing through, I'm gonna go ahead and drive in, hold for 2 or 3 seconds. I wanna focus on relaxing, then I'm gonna bring myself back out of it. And I'm gonna repeat that process 2 or 3 times until I feel myself actually get all the way in to a good stretch. Once I've gotten that good stretch, I'm gonna go ahead and switch and do the other side. Okay, so the next thing that we're gonna focus on is creating some tension, stretch, release through the lats. Now, why this is important is because the lats, they're actually gonna connect through the backside into your scaps and your delt, and they're gonna pull your shoulders down. Well, this can become a problem because if I'm tight through my lats, I'm not gonna be able to get my arms all the way up over my head. So not only do I wanna create that stretch through the front, the anterior chain, but I also wanna create the stretch down through the bottom. So a really good lat stretch that I like is you get the bar set up here, you're gonna bring both elbows right to the top of the bar, and then you're gonna bring your hands together in prayer hands. And once I get myself set up here, I'm gonna go ahead and tuck my chin down through my elbows and arms. And then I wanna position my feet so that I'm capable of applying a little bit more downward pressure, getting that stretch through my lats. From here, I'm gonna go ahead and reach my arms all the way back, try to tap my thumbs to the nape of my neck, right at the T-spine, and then focus on this stretch that I'm now getting through both my triceps and into my lats. And if you want, you can focus on extending the arms to relieve the pressure, and then you can exhale, bring it all the way back down to increase that stretch. And then again, you see me dropping my chest forward, pushing through my legs, trying to get my head to slide forward just a little bit more to welcome that stretch. And if I can do a really good job of opening up through my triceps and into my lats, that's gonna make it a lot easier for me to get my arms all the way up into a good vertical press. So the next thing that we want to focus on is that once we've gone through the corrective portion of stretching through the shoulder, the next thing we want to focus on is how can we actively get blood into that area, warm the tissue up, and start to create a little bit of excitement in that space. I like to do this with bands, and I always suggest this with clients. So again, there are two core movement patterns that we really want to focus on, depending on whether your shoulder is healthy, if you have some pre-existing conditions. These are the two things that I always suggest for clients. The first one is going to be a hinge lat pull down. So from here, I want to take this band and I want to attach it up nice and high. Now, you can attach it to the pull-up bar. Depending on the height of the bar, you can attach it to the legs of the squat rack. Maybe you loop it over a door, you hang it on a door handle. The objective here is to get ourselves set up so that we can now fire up this tissue, right, through the lats to create stability for the bottom pocket. So I get my hands locked in. I'm gonna take a hinge through my hips, and as I hinge through here, I keep my core tight, I sit back into my glutes, and then I get my arms situated up top. The big thing here is that I'm not arching my lower back, which you'll be able to see. I want to make sure that I can tuck and maintain a strong neutral spine, putting the pressure into my glutes, keeping my core tight, and taking the tension out of my lumbar spine. From here, I'll breathe in. You'll see me lock my shoulders down, which is engaging the lats. And then on the exhale, I press that band right down to my thighs. Now I'm actively engaging the tissue that I just took a moment to stretch out. Inhale, exhale, pressing straight down. Now, because this on an RPE scale is like a 2 or a 3, I want to try to do maybe 20 to 30 reps here, or until I start to feel the muscles warming up. And we want to do 2 sets of this. So we'll go through 20 reps, good strong press down, making sure I'm not shrugging through the shoulders, breaking in my bodily form. And then when I'm done, I can rest for a moment. So the goal here is 2 sets of 20 to 30 reps. Tension is not meant to wear you out, it's just meant to warm you up. So the second exercise that we want to focus on here that I really like is called a pass-through. And what we want to do is we want to grab onto the band and we want to pull apart. And this is going to create a little bit of tension through the backside of the posterior delt. And this is going to help me create some stability as I'm working through that vertical press. And that's ultimately what we want when we're pressing overhead, is we want as much shoulder stability as we can create. So in this exercise, I'll grab my band. Tension-wise, this is again going to be maybe a 2 or a 3 on a scale of 10. And then I want to start down nice and low. And this is important. As I take my arms all the way up overhead, I want to be able to pull the band over my head apart enough till I'm able to get my arms to clear all the way through the back. Now, if you'll notice, this is the same stretch or the same tissue in the front that we were stretching when we were doing that doorway stretch. And this is going to ensure that I've got appropriate clearance for my arms, again, as they're working their way up overhead. Now, I don't want this to be fast. Right? I don't want to get to here and let my arms get yanked back down by the bands. What I want to do is I want to maintain a good, even amount of control through tension, working my way through all the way up and over. And I can open my arms as wide as they need to go, or they can be as narrow as they need to be based on my own level of shoulder mobility. The last piece here is starting to lock in on the rib cage. A lot of times I'll see people do pass-throughs and they're flaring their ribs as they're moving their arms over and back. And that's not a big problem when you start getting into heavy weights or we're doing explosive movements, but right now our primary focus is on creating stability through the trunk and torso, and we want to make sure that we're giving our shoulders the appropriate amount of challenge that they need to get warmed up so that I can start putting them under load. So when you're going through that motion, make sure that when your arms go up, you're not flaring your ribs to create space for those arms to come through, that instead we're working on keeping everything tucked tight. We tuck the hips under, we draw the navel in, we exhale and lock in through the core. That way we can put the focus where the focus belongs. Warming up the shoulders and making sure that we're getting all the way up and over. This is an exercise where you want to focus on doing maybe 10 to 12 reps. And again, we want to do 2 sets here. All right, guys, so that wraps up going through our functional mobility, going through some of the static stretches, as well as the activation, which is going to help with stability. Now that you've got that part dialed in, let's go ahead and move on over to part 2 of this video series and watch and learn a little bit more about what it actually looks like for vertical pressing and how we're going to build some strength. As always, if you like this video, make sure that you like, subscribe, and comment below. Make sure that if you're working out with a buddy or a partner, that you share this video with them so that they can learn as much as you're learning in your free time. And Make sure that you get these exercises dialed in so that you can get really right for the second part of this video series. As always, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.